Welcome back to another episode of the Formula E Zone podcast. Blimey, we're already at number 5, our 5th instalment this one is, and today we're going to be covering round 6 of ABB Formula E Season 5, the Sanya Prix. That's going to be our main meat and potatoes of this episode, but stick around till the very end and you might just get a sneaky little announcement for the next race in Rome. If you are new, feel free to subscribe, feel free to enjoy. But before we get into any of the juicy details from the Sanya Prix, first, let's meet our guests. And returning after taking a break, I think we were all pretty disappointed at taking a break, although Chris did a brilliant job filling in for him, is Tobias. Welcome back, mate. I hope you had a nice week off.
Oh, I did, yes. Thank you so much for having me back on. Chris did a fantastic job. He's a great guest, isn't he? I've known him for quite some time. He did a fantastic job, but saying that, I'm happy to be back again.
Yeah, we're glad you're back, mate. And also coming back, unfortunately, is Jack. Welcome back, Jack.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'd love to know that I'm appreciated around here. Before I start, big news. We have a Patreon. Now, we've had a Patreon for a few episodes, but we haven't really bragged about it or said anything because I think we love the podcast, we love doing what we do. And it's not really about the money, but if you would love to support us, it just helps us keep it like ad-free, stuff like that. Just making sure that you can get really good content and stuff like that in the future. There is a Patreon page. There's no obligation to obviously pay for it or to go onto it. It's just if you fancy supporting us. There are some fun sort of limits or things. So if you are so inclined to pay £10, okay, you can pay for Tobias to go back on holiday. Okay, so he can stave up for his next holiday, wherever that may be around the country. Dan needs some food desperately.
Yeah, that is very true.
He's a student.
He's a student.
Yeah. He's learning his trade. Okay, he needs food. Okay, he lives in a university campus. Okay, it's not great. Conditions aren't good.
Shocking.
Okay, so if you pay £5, okay, you can feed him for a week. Okay,
a week.
So that's that. Yeah, a week.
In which country do £5 bring through the entire week?
Post Brexit. And then
Okay, good.
and then if you're a bit, you're happy to support. If you do want to support, you can pay £2 to save up for me to get a watch, so I can remember to turn up to the podcast on time.
Yes, that's a necessity.
So,
now I'm happy to donate to that cause.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, right. Continue. But thank you so much for people who already are listening, liking. We appreciate it massively. Okay, so let's have a good podcast.
No, that's great, and links will be in the description and everywhere, so it should be pretty easy to find. And thank you if you do donate. But shall we talk some Formula E? Shall we crack on with that? Another race weekend, 6 down now. Did we continue the streak of 6 different winners? We'll get onto that a little bit later on. But first, as we always do, we like to start off with qualifying. And I suppose going into this weekend, the track, when it first came out, I thought, this looks quite good. And we could see quite an interesting race unfold. Plenty of overtaking opportunities. But already in qualifying, it was looking not so great, perhaps a little bit narrow. And overall, I found qualifying a little bit dull, to be honest with you. That's probably me being a bit boring, acting like an old man, the opposite to a student. But it was Nissan, the first team to take 2 poles this season, who eventually got the result they wanted. Ollie Rowland taking his first of his Formula E career. In Super Pole as well, we saw Jean-Eric Vergne, Antonio Felix da Costa. Jack, I know you've got some very heated thoughts about this, but I just wanted to quickly say, we're now 6 rounds in, and after that Super Pole session, I'm looking at Nissan, Techeetah, BMW. Are we starting to get an idea of what that running order is, Tobias?
No, we're not.
No? Okay, there you go then.
It's a bit difficult to say, really, because I seem to, in each and every episode, I seem to say it, but in qualifying on one quick lap, every team can do good. And Nissan has been especially good on this track because they, obviously with their twin engine, double motor setup, they tend to be good out of slow corners. And Sanya, of course, had turn 8, the slow left-hand hairpin, and a couple of slower portions of the track. And that seemed to help them in Sanya. But if we move on to Rome, for example, apart from maybe the third sector, it's anyone's game in qualifying. And that applies to every circuit on the calendar. When it comes to qualifying, everyone can be on pole this year. And although Nissan has been on it twice this season, I don't see a reason why they'd be called favourites in qualifying. It's anyone's game.
No, I agree. I think you can't take Virgin, because Virgin wasn't in that. And yes, they've had some poor weekends over the last couple of race weekends, but they're in that fight. So any team can get pole. Any team can, we had stuff with Van Dorn, like in last race. So it just shows that basically anyone can get pole. You just need to hook up the lap, hook up the setup, okay, and then bish bash bosh, okay, you could be on pole. It's as simple as that. It's just about consistency in this championship and in the race, because we've seen that some cars have great qualifying pace, but then in the race their pace just ain't there.
Well, if anyone can be on pole, Jack, then surely it's a really good qualifying system.
Yeah, to contradict what I just said, I think this qualifying system is rubbish. I really do. I've sort of warmed to the idea of it, that it's about mixing up the race and so forth, and that's not qualifying. Like, maybe I'm a purist. Maybe, despite, being still fairly young, but watching motorsport since like a young age and knowing that qualifying was all about the fastest man being on pole, I don't think Formula E's qualifying achieves that. I feel it's a sort of a gimmick to sort of, enhance the race, to make the race more interesting. By having the championship leaders in Group 1 every race weekend and being susceptible to bad track conditions every weekend, just to have a mixed up grid, it's not worth it, in my honest opinion. I feel like you can't penalise our championship leaders and have the championship, because the championship is being affected by it. Okay, we saw it with Bird, okay, in this race, which we'll get onto, but having the championship leaders in Group 1 is affecting the championship, and it's making it more of a lottery for other drivers to win, because you're putting other drivers, because the field is so close, and if you give someone in Group 3 or 4 a track advantage in what it possibly was in Group 1 after an hour of no running, then those cars are going to be difficult to overtake, and then your championship leaders aren't going to be fighting at the front. So for me, I feel like it needs to go back to the driver lottery system, where, yes, you could probably say that wasn't the best system in the world, but at least it was a lottery. At least, the championship leader might be in Group 4, and they could still be in Group 1. But at least it's a lottery, and it's the same for everyone. You could say it's the same for everyone in this one, but is it fair to keep penalising the championship leader every race? Whereas sometimes they could be in Group 4. Sometimes you might get the fun of, you have one in Group 1 and one in Group 4, and then the one in Group 1's faster. That makes for a more interesting qualifying session. And also, it would kill the boring Group 4 qualifying session, where it's just the back markers, essentially, just qualifying. You get to Group 4 and there's no crescendo. There's no, can this driver do it? In normal conditions, yes, maybe in wet conditions and drying conditions, as we saw in Hong Kong, that we could get that change. But in a normal qualifying session, which we experienced in Sanya, qualifying Group 4 was pointless. They might as well have gone out first or gone out in some random time, because they did absolutely nothing for the order. So, a little rant over, but I'm just thinking, after 6 races, I'm just like, it doesn't work.
Thank you, Jack.
I'm sorry. That's the appreciation I get. You see, it's just like, this guy is just talking rubbish. But I feel like it's a valid point.
No, it is.
I feel like, I don't know, when you were watching qualifying, did you feel like, when you came to Group 4, you saw the drivers they're in? No offence, it's just the cars that they're in. Okay, because there's some good drivers. Oliver Turvey and Tom Dillman should not be a Group 4 back marker in the championship. They shouldn't. Okay.
No, yeah, I agree.
Shouldn't.
And even like you say, we had Bird this race, who was at the back of the field. Last time out, we had the two Mahindra guys. We had Da Costa. The two Mahindra cars were out very early on, but Da Costa, I mean, if it was in, say, non-street circuits, I suppose a little bit like Mexico where there's plenty of overtaking spots, okay, yeah, maybe it's a little bit more acceptable because those guys are going to be able to get through the field, but on circuits like Hong Kong and like this weekend, it's almost going to be impossible. So I agree with you. I prefer the lottery system. Tobias, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult thing to talk about because I don't really have anything to say against the current system. Of course, it didn't provide the spectacle we expected to provide in Sanya, but at the same time, I didn't think qualifying was particularly boring either, because if you compare it to qualifyings in, I don't know, WTCR or WEC, it's not exciting either. In the end of the day, it's just time trial driving, and
But isn't that what qualifying is?
yeah, that's it. But yeah, how to put it? I don't have an issue with it in terms of being too boring. Yeah, I'm searching for the right words here.
For me, qualifying is the fastest man round the track at that specific time who is fastest.
Yeah, but you can't say that people in Group 4 are the slowest ones, because Van Dorn, who qualified in Group 4, was on pole the race before in Hong Kong.
Yeah, but that was because of different sort of track conditions compared to Group 1. But if you have a normal qualifying session, then it's fine. It's not fine. I mean, it's, it becomes, Group 4 becomes what it should be, as in the slowest drivers. It's like having Q1 in Formula 1, but last. There's no build-up.
Yeah.
At least with the lottery system, you might, you could have those drivers in Group 4 and it could, be beneficial for them, depending on the track conditions. But, depending on circuits, I feel like if it's more of a lottery system like it was before, I think it was fun. It was good for the fans. They get to see the drivers pick the lottery systems in the morning, whereas now it's picked the night before because it's automatically done. So, I don't know. I think like we've touched qualifying. I feel like it's done.
Terrible. That is shocking, Jack. That is awful. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to move on then. Moving on to the race. And to be honest, it's not an awful idea that we spoke that long about qualifying, because it wasn't the most eventful race of the season. It wasn't barren, but it wasn't the crazy Formula E races we've perhaps come to expect so far this season in Formula E. But with Roland on pole and Vergne in second, we thought, with 2 long straights, a nice hairpin, we might get a bit of feisty scrapping going on, but we didn't really see too much. Roland led early doors after, well, I probably should mention this, we haven't seen this, I don't think, since Hong Kong last year, but the start light's not working again. That's always fun. That's always great to see, I suppose, and Pascal Wehrlein got a bit mugged off by that, but the first, I suppose, early stages, there wasn't really much going on. Bird, unfortunately, got involved in a bit of contact with Lopez and Van Dorn. That just seemed like a bit of a racing incident, a little bit unlucky for everyone there. Probably glossing over that a little bit, but there's some more key points a little bit later on. But what I really enjoyed is that we've had this streak so far this year of different race winners from different teams, and you look at it on paper and you think, oh, well, surely that streak's going to come to an end. But in this race, for a good chunk of, I suppose, the first half of the race, the first 20 minutes or so, we had a lead 6, and only one of them had won a race so far this year, because we had Jean-Eric Vergne leading after he overtook Ollie Rowland. We had Rowland in second. We had Da Costa, the only one who had won a race in that top 6. Then we had Daniel Abt and Andre Lotterer, Jesus, and Alex.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. And Alexander Sims. So we were having a really mixed up grid at the front, which was great to see, and I'm loving this streak of different winners. But then we had our first, I suppose, big talking point of the race, the red flag incident. And if I've missed anything, please call me out, because knowing me, I get very excited over a big smash. But Sims I suppose I was going to say made a bit of a mistake, ran a bit wide. Lotterer tried to be the opportunistic Andre Lotterer and almost squeezed him into the wall, but how do you two see it? Because part of me thinks it's a driving sort of racing incident more than Lotterer using any aggression. But from Lotterer's past, it's the sort of thing that he wouldn't mind doing, is squeezing someone into the wall. So I'll start with you this time, Tobias, because with Jack on the form he's on today, we'll be here for the next half an hour.
Yeah, but I'll have to be boring there as well and agree. I think it really was a racing incident. Of course, after Jeff took the lead, all hell broke loose behind him, and he stormed away, built his lead of, I think, about 3 or 4 seconds, and behind him all sorts of things were going on, including this incident between Lotterer and Sims. Sims wouldn't have ended up in the wall if it hadn't been for Andre on his left-hand side. That's for certain. But it's a racing incident, in my opinion. Jack, on to you.
Yeah, I have to agree. It was a racing incident. It's a shame, really. It was just, I think drivers, to be honest with you, all weekend we're getting really close to that, like turn 6, that wall there, and it was a valid attempt by Lotterer to try and get past, and it just didn't pay off. It's just a shame that it forced Sims off. But I suppose you could say that's just a con or part and parcel of racing on a street circuit, that we want to see overtaking moves, and when the drivers are this close, like they're unbelievably close, like it's beggars belief when you're watching them how close they actually are, that I think you have to expect some of this stuff. But that's, then we can go on to a different story in terms of, well, if we start expecting cars to be hitting to each other, then maybe there should be some sort of penalty to stop that. But I feel like that was just part and parcel of street racing. So it was unfortunate, but I agree it was a racing incident.
There was no penalty for that, was there?
No, I don't think so.
No, which I think that's the right decision. And I'm glad we all agree. That's quite rare, to be honest.
That's a first,
Yeah, but moving on from that, I mean, it was a little bit of a... Again, I'm trying not to be negative, but I just found it quite stale for the rest of this race. And I think an issue was the track layout. And I know we had a little pre-chat before, Tobias, before we started this one, but for me, when I first saw it, I thought, oh yes, 2 long straights, a nice hairpin, the first, I suppose, couple of sectors, if you want to call them that, looked quite good for overtaking. But in reality, I thought it just didn't really do anything for me, and I thought we'd see a lot more overtaking. But I suppose the nature of Formula E cars, in a straight line, they're all so similar, it's going to be quite difficult for them to get an overtake, unless you've got someone like Sebastian Buemi starting from the pit lane and working his way through the field. But Jack, how did you see the track layout? Was that an issue for you, or am I just being a bit of a cry?
Maybe.
Cheers.
But well, the thing is, when you watched, because Formula E repeat the same VT every single session, they were really praising the track layout in terms of, it had a good opportunity for overtaking. There was different surface changes, which means it would be different grips. It would be easier to make mistakes, which would allow promote overtaking. You had the long straight. Basically everything that you just said in terms of it looked like it would be a good track to overtake on. But for one reason or the other, and I think the close nature of the cars, I think how they are fairly closely matched, because when you've got, if you get the same exit from the corner before going onto the long straight, then the chances of slipstreaming and overtaking in Formula E is difficult. So with the cars being so close together and so evenly matched on pace, then to get that advantage down the straight, unless you're in attack mode or using fan boost potentially, you're not gonna get a move done. And I think maybe that's what Formula E fell victim to. But yes, the race may have been stale, but there was a lot of stuff for me to keep my eyes on, because there was plenty of battles and plenty of things going on, which I think we're used to seeing now in many racing series, like watching a battle just unfold lap after lap after lap. And I think we saw that in the last race in Hong Kong of Lotterer and Bird. So for me, yes, there may not have been the overtaking, but for me, I'm happy that as long as the cars can race close and there's attempts to overtake and it doesn't pay off, then it doesn't pay off. So for me, I don't think track layout was too bad. And to be fair, I don't want a track layout that promotes overtaking at every corner. I'd rather have a few overtaking spots where you have to get the move done, because I think you get more satisfaction from racing and seeing a car overtake a car with like needing effort to do so than watching a car overtake every corner because the track promotes it.
And I think it's
that's fair enough.
It's also I'm so sorry. I think it's also been an issue of not circuit design but corner design. If the corners in let's call it the infield, turns 1 to 4, if they had been designed a bit differently, maybe a bit of a sharper turn 1 could have led to overtakes in turn 3, which we haven't seen apart from attack mode activation. Speaking of, incredible spot to put, or unbelievably great spot in my opinion, to put the attack zone on the outside of turn 3. I'll touch on it a bit later possibly, but in my opinion the attack zone was placed beautifully in Sanya. But apart from that, we actually only saw a couple of moves into turn 8 and turn 11, which both were kind of hairpins, although turn 11 was more of a 90-degree left-hander. And if some corners had been designed a bit differently, we could have seen more overtakes. That's for sure. That said, I didn't think it was a particularly stale race. In Formula E terms, maybe, yes. So in Formula E terms, we always see these incredible races. Remember, I don't know, think back to Marrakesh, the final lap, or the entire Prix of Santiago with 3 drivers, and then in the end, after Buemi retiring, 2 drivers fighting for the lead. We've seen some incredible battles this year, and Sanya didn't quite live up to that standard, but at the same time, the Sanya Prix still was way more exciting than we've seen in other races just in 2019.
Yeah, I think, Formula E put themselves in that precedent where if every race is a 10 out of 10, then suddenly a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 looks really dull and looks really strange. It's like probably any good TV series where you get really lots of good episodes and then you watch one and you're like, oh, this one's not as good. It's probably Sanya fell into that category where this one was just not as good as the others. But I don't think it was, its fault. I think when you get a precedent where every race is dramatic and every race is, the adrenaline's pumping, you can't believe the race is over, the checkered flags drop, you don't know what's just happened, you're like, you can't believe what you've just watched. And then when you get a standard motorsport race, in a sense, was what we got in Sanya, it's like, oh, was that it? And you just forget. That's what I was trying to say. Like, there was some actual good battles in that race. Like, there was some just normal racing that we'd see in every other racing series. So, it's hard to be critical of Sanya.
We are a bit spoiled, aren't we?
Yes, I think that's true. Again, back to the two teething babies analogy, where we're just crying because it's not what we want.
Yeah, and I think back to the first race of the season, and we were all buzzing about that race, thinking, oh yeah, Formula E Season 5, this is going to be really good. And then every race after that, it just seemed to get better and better and better. And I suppose thinking back to it now, that's probably one of the lower end races of this year. And if this race had perhaps swapped places with that one, then perhaps you're right, I am just being a bit of a cry. But Tobias, well, no, nothing new there. But I'm interested that you brought up Fan Boost, Tobias, because...
Oh, did I?
Last week, when you weren't here, we spoke about... Not Fan Boost. Attack mode. Whoopsie, slip of the tongue.
He had to say Fan Boost. Yeah, like, he just has to get in every episode.
That's for the bingo board. But... Attack mode, sorry. You mentioned that one. And last week, when you weren't here, we spoke about it, and we said... Is it having the right effect? Because I felt, again, in this race, it was one of these races where they were trying to save it for the safety car, and last time out we discussed that maybe there should be some sort of rule where they can't use it under the safety car, or maybe, I don't know, a couple of laps later, because it just felt like it was a bit, I was going to say nothing-y. It was just sort of, in the background.
Predictable.
Yeah, predicted. Just didn't quite have the effect I feel that it was supposed to have this weekend. But I was just interested because you mentioned it there, and I agree it was in a really good place this weekend where it should be, and that is something we moaned about last time. So that was a tick in the box. But I'm just interested to what you thought about how people used attack mode this time.
Yeah, I'll agree with what you said not last week, but after the last race. I had the impression that in Sanya the attack mode was used really carefully before the red flag, and we had the safety car restart obviously, and behind the safety car each and every driver who still was running and still had 2 attack modes remaining, or 1 attack mode remaining, went into the attack zone and just got it out of the way. And that's probably the topic sentence I'd pick for attack mode in Sanya. You want to have it out of your way, and especially because of the location of the attack zone on the outside of turn 3, there's not really an advantage to be gained with a track layout in terms of having 25 kilowatts more, but you had the disadvantage of activating it, and we saw a couple of drivers losing out and actually losing actual positions while activating attack mode. So you had the disadvantage of the activation, but you didn't have the advantage of the increased power. That's why most drivers used it carefully in the first 2/3 of the race and got lucky when the safety car came out. And I'll agree that maybe just like DRS in Formula 1, you possibly need 2 laps after the safety car comes in again to activate attack mode. And that could possibly spice up things even more. We have it at the beginning of the race. You can only activate attack mode after lap 3, and that might be the solution for more attack mode spectacle, really. Because if we keep it the same way...
That's what we were talking about last week.
If we just keep it the same way, everyone's going to activate it behind the safety car. Whether obviously overtaken is forbidden under safety car regulations and under full course yellow rules as well. So yeah, I'll agree with what all of you said last week. Maybe prohibit drivers from using attack mode or activating. They can use it behind the safety car, but activating attack mode behind the safety car or under full course yellow.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a failure for them if they've used attack mode and then the safety car comes out. It's just like, tough luck. It's just that's racing, right? But they shouldn't be able to then go and use it, which is as soon as the safety car's about to come in, because then, as I said last week, it's just scalextrics, everyone running around at the same pace with no real advantage. It just really nullifies the whole point of attack mode. But we won't go into it too much. But it was interesting to see that there seems to be a consensus that needs to change. I know that's a really small sample size of 4 people, but I'm pretty sure that if we started talking to more people outside, then I reckon that number for that change would increase dramatically.
Yeah, I think it was just missing from the race, wasn't it? Just that extra bit of spice at the end. But I suppose we did get a bit of spice at the end of the race. A 3-way crash involving Robin, scared to say his surname, Robin Frijns, I will try and say.
Don't mispronounce
That's
it.
good.
Well, okay, that'll do. Sebastian Buemi, I can say that one. And Lucas de Grassi, that's even easier to pronounce that one. Now, I want to see more replays of this. I'm still a little bit confused with what was going on. It looked like Buemi was going for a move up the inside of the hairpin. I mean, don't get me wrong, de Grassi was the complete innocent bystander with that move. But it looked like Buemi was going for the move, then Frijns decided to maybe block him off a little bit late and then locked up. I'm hoping that you two have a better insight on this than I do, because it all looked just very messy from my end of things.
Yeah, messy actually is a good word for it. Buemi was running 6th at the time, if I'm not completely mistaken, and has been under attack, or has been battling with Robin for a couple of laps beforehand. And we are on the penultimate lap, and Buemi tries to Oh, am I right in that? I think Buemi tries to overtake Robin Frijns there. Both collide, and... yeah, it all ends up in Robin being punted off and just streaming into the rear end of Lucas de Grassi's car, and in the end just basically breaks his entire rear end. I think there's been damage to at least the drive shaft and possibly more, because it was quite the impact. And after the race, both went very vocal in the media pen and had a lot to say about each other. And especially today, by the time of this recording, it's Monday night and Monday morning. Both drivers took to Twitter and had a lot to say about each other, about moving under braking, about, Robin called it saving. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that because we're a non-explicit podcast, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, words were said, and
that is true.
Yeah, and it's been a pretty, how to put it, harsh discussion, or with a lot of a fiery discussion. Let's put it that way. A fiery discussion between the two on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely fiery discussion. Like, I feel sorry. Well, do I feel sorry for Frijns? Because I really love watching Robin drive. I really do. And he may have been a bit aggressive in his defence, which maybe, we haven't really seen the replays. We've only seen the one replay where they come straight at us. And you can't really even see the Buemi Frijns touch. It looked like Frijns had just stormed in. Okay, but then if you slow it down and you have a look, you can see where Buemi has hit Frijns. But you can't really, there's not really an angle that's come out so far to see where if Robin did chop him or, gave Buemi no space. Which maybe de Grassi has had access to and has made his assumption on that, and that's why that fiery discussion took place. But for me, I think it's racing. I'm not going to condemn Robin for racing hard, because that's one of the things I love about him, and I think that's some of the things people love about Andre Lotterer, is that you ain't going to get past this person easy, and and I think we should appreciate it. And as long as they respect the rules, which I think 99% of the time they do, then it's a joy to watch. So, for Buemi then to hit Frijns and then for Frijns to hit de Grassi, yes, it's annoying for de Grassi, and I suppose he was on such a real good momentum. Everything was going his way. The championship was looking like, he was clawing his way back into it, and he was a proper title contender. And, the fourth position that he was in was a really good position to end the race and, to take good points. But it ends up becoming a no-point race. So I really can understand his frustration, because this championship, you need to finish races. It doesn't matter if you finish 5th or 4th or 3rd, and even if you don't win, okay, just picking up those points is so crucial, and I reckon de Grassi understands that, and to have the points ripped out of his hands, okay, for no fault of his own, was a bit tough for him to take, and obviously we've seen that. It's been a bit tough for him to take, because 2 days later he's still complaining on social media. But it's good fun.
It is. It was it was a joy to watch this morning. That's for sure. But you're right. Consistency is something that I think all the drivers this year have been lacking. So much so that Vergne, who hasn't scored in the last 3 races, now finds himself in the top 3 of the championship, just because he won today and got the fastest lap, or won this time out. And I'll go on.
And last week we called him. Last week we said he wasn't gonna win this championship.
Yeah.
Last race weekend we said, is it over for Vergne? And we went, more than likely. More than likely. We said, yeah, probably. I can't see him. You can't have 3 no scores and win this championship. But hey ho, he could still win this championship. So, what do we know?
Well, we go into Rome once again, where the top 11 can lead the standings, and that does include my guy Mitch Evans, who, again, somehow continues his point streak, and so does Daniel Abt. I don't know how those two are quite managing that. But I'll quickly just go through the race result, and it was Jean-Eric Vergne who took up his first win of the season, which still seems a bit crazy to say. Ollie Rowland got his first podium, and Nissan's first podium in P2, and rounding off the podium was Antonio Felix da Costa, who is now leading the championship, and I feel has probably been, I would like to say, the most consistent, but I suppose in race 2 and 3 there's a little bit of a blip there. Lotterer was 4th, helped by the crazy incidents at the end and I suppose his own luck smashing Sims into the wall. Not really many stories up and down the grid apart from that, to be totally honest with you. Abt and Evans continuing their point streak. Massa getting a single point for Venturi. They had a pretty difficult weekend. I think that about wraps it up for the race, to be honest with you. If there's anything I've missed, please let me know, you two. But as always, before we go anywhere, driver of the day. I love doing the driver of the day segment, and make sure you don't pick the same driver. I'm going to go first this week, because I always go last and I always end up screwing myself. So I'm going to pick Jean-Eric Vergne. The champ is back. A brilliant drive and a beautiful move on Ollie Rowland to take the lead. Caught him napping and I feel just controlled the race. You know, he didn't dart off into the distance and make a mistake like we've seen some drivers do this year when leading. It just seemed a really controlled performance from him, considering he was under a bit of pressure this weekend. So I'll let you go next, Jack, because we need to punish Tobias somehow for not being here for one of the podcasts. So I'll let you go next, Jack.
I'm going to go for Ollie Rowland because I think it was to do what he's done this weekend, and it was astounding. And we keep mentioning it, and I know we mentioned it last week as well, but I just feel like it's just maybe like a last little talking point that the Nissan car is a really good qualifying car, and he's taking full advantage of that. And I think the Sanya race showed that they might have worked on their qualifying. They've got the speed in qualifying, but they just, for whatever reason, it's not like they don't have the efficiency, because their efficiency was fairly decent throughout the race and pretty consistent with the others. But he just didn't seem to have the race pace, which then allowed Vergne, you know, with a car that has great race pace, in my opinion, to go through and then go on to win the race. But then he held a strong second place, and I think his progression from where he's come, as we've said before, with limited testing, race weekend after race weekend, he has just taken chunks and chunks and chunks of step forward. And you know, I still think he's doing a stellar job. So P2, I think he could hold his head held high, and I think, you know, if Nissan can get maybe a hold of their race pace and maybe find a couple attempts here and there in the setup, then he will win a race before the season's out.
I'll have to agree and say Ollie Rowland as well. He had a fantastic outing in Hong Kong last time out, and only scored 6 points before the Sanya race weekend, and moved, or actually had quite a good race. I'm not really sure if I agree in terms of Nissan not having any race pace. They almost won in Santiago in Chile. They almost won in Hong Kong. I mean, not really won, but they had a strong car in Hong Kong. And once again in Sanya, not quite enough for the race win, but a front runner. And that just gives my driver of the day award to Ollie Rowland.
Yeah, I agree, and he also cheated.
Yeah, that was shocking. You're gonna have to.
He
pick
also
someone
cheated.
Else.
You're gonna have to pick someone else.
You can't steal someone else's.
But I agree with you. But the race pace was decent. So you know, I'll give you some seconds to think about who else you pick. But the race pace was decent. I think that race in Sanya just showed that the race. If he had the race pace to win, like he probably did have in those races, then he could have won. But I felt like he always looked like he was on the back foot when he was leading. He never looked like he could do the Vergne and pull away straight away. He was always on that back foot defending, okay, which just shows that sort of lack of race pace to actually lead a race and win it. And maybe we saw that with Vergne in Mexico. Like, he did have to manage a lot towards the end, but maybe that Mahindra can get him there, but then once he's there, it's a struggle to stay there.
So if I'm not allowed to pick Ollie Rowland, then I'm going for Antonio Felix Acosta, who drove a really clever race. Only third, of course, that's not where we expected BMW to be after pre-season testing, but P3 brings him back to the top of the Drivers' Championship, 1 point ahead of Jerome D'Ambrosio. It's 62 to 61 points there, and then I'll just another point I'm bringing up here, but the Drivers' both championships are so close once again. We have 62, 61 at the front, I already said that, and then we have 54, 54, 52 and 52 for positions 3 to 6, and that's Bird, Vergne, Di Grassi and Mortara. It's really close in the drives and the teams as well. Virgin and Mahindra sharing the top two with both on level terms. 97 points for both of them, 96 points for Audi, 95 points for DS Techeetah, and 80 points for BMW. It's so close this year, and
it's nuts.
It's nuts, yeah.
It really is nuts. It's just crazy.
We've seen more different race winners this season alone than Formula One has managed since the Spanish Grand Prix in May 2012. More different manufacturers winning in Formula E than F1 managed since the Hungarian Grand Prix 2006. So 13 years of F1 didn't manage to bring us more manufacturers winning races than FE managed in this season alone, and that just shows how
it's just
how
crazy.
it is.
It really is, and it's full credit to Alejandro Agag, like what he's achieved so far this season, and obviously the teams deserve some credit, but the way the technical roadmap has gone and the way he's led the series has been tremendous. Like he's I know he might be stepping aside for CEO to become chairman in the future, and we might have a new CEO, but what he's done for this series has been outstanding.
Absolutely.
To have it this close halfway through a season, it's just mind-boggling.
And so we move on to the European leg of the season. We've seen all Asian Prix. We've seen 2 in Africa. If we count Saudi Arabia as an African country, I'm not really sure if that's really Africa, but it's not technically Asia either.
It's more Middle East, I think.
Yeah. So the flyaway races.
Geography 101.
Yeah. So we've seen the flyaway races, bar New York, obviously, and now we move on to the European races. We'll have a European Championship for the first time in Formula E this season, and we're kicking it off in 3 weeks' time in Rome, and I'm so much looking forward to that as well, because Rome is a fantastic track.
Will you be there?
I will be there. You will be there, I think, as well, and Dan too.
Hopefully we will be there.
So
maybe Dan too.
So all 3 of us will be in Rome.
So
that's going to be carnage.
We can do a live version.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's a scary thought.
We can do the Formula E Zone podcast on the road.
Wow.
On the road. Not just in front of cars, like when no one's about, like
on the start line.
My life in danger. Like, I enjoy it, guys, but maybe a step too far. Thank you guys for joining me today. Jack and Tobias, everyone, they are a lot of fun. They're a good laugh, aren't they? And that's it for another episode of the Formula E Zone podcast. And if you did just catch that between our multiple giggles there, hopefully all of us will be going to Rome, my first ever E-Prix. I've never seen a Formula E race in the flesh. I've never been to Italy, so I'm really looking forward to that one in a couple of weekends' time. And what another episode this was of the Formula E Zone podcast. Plenty of dramas, plenty of debates. That's exactly what we love. And if you really did enjoy, feel free to subscribe. And if you're listening to this on a different type of medium than YouTube, feel free to head over to the Formula E Zone YouTube channel. You can contact us over on Formula E Zone Twitter, so follow us over there as well. And as Jack mentioned at the very beginning of the episode, the Patreon is now live, so links will be in the description. And obviously, if you're listening elsewhere, on the train, in the car, anywhere really, on the bog, really, anywhere, you can check those links out right now if you wish. Formula E Zone, a brilliant place to get all of your Formula E news, the latest and I always say the greatest, but that's probably a little bit biased, but Jack and the crew always do a brilliant job, so I'm always grateful they've let me on board to help them out with the podcast, so I just wanted to throw that in. So Jack, that's for you there, mate. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for the Rome E-Prix.